Hi everyone, Magnus here, and today I'm going to be starting a bit of a new series which is about analysing viewer games and giving some tips on improvement. If you want your own game to be analysed, then please leave some comments in the comment section, and whichever comment gets the most likes by the point that I choose to do this next viewer game analysis, that is the chess.com account that I will choose to analyze and give some tips on. So on this particular occasion, I'm going to be analyzing two games, of which are viewer here in the bottom won, and two games which they lost, as well as going through this tool called opening tree, where I'm going to try and look at their opening consistency and see what they have going on there, and see if I can make any recommendations to their general play. So okay, starting off with the first game, our viewer has the black pieces, and the opponent starts with pawn to e4. They respond with pawn to e5, which I think is fine. So it's a standard opening response at the low levels. But I do, maybe not just yet. You can probably still play e5 for a while, but I do think it's worthwhile taking a look at the c5 Dragon Sicilian setups with knight c6 and g6. I have made a video on it. It's called the only opening that you'll need with black pieces against one e4. But okay, we get e5, d3, knight c6. This is good development by our viewer, getting both the knights out, which I think is great. They strike in the center. They also capture in the center after their opponent doesn't seem to be developing any of their pieces. They're ignoring opening principles. Our guy has moved out both the knights, which is great, and is now reaping the dividends by capturing a pawn in the center, trading queens, taking this pawn, obviously eyeing this fork here. The opponent defends it. We get a decent developing move here, probably looking to castle along, which I think is great. And the knight hops into the weak b3 square after knight to a3, which is a strange developing move. The rook is now under fire, and if the rook moves here, we will get a capture. If the rook moves here, we will get a capture again. That's exactly what happens. And honestly, a fairly clean conversion. Don't have a whole lot to say about this game, other than maybe what comes next. After you've pinned here, there is no real reason why you should not be just taking the rook. This might just be a board vision thing, but you can just take the rook, then take the knight, and very, very simple. You can just move the bishop back, bring the other rook in, and it's basically a forced checkmate. I'll show you something like here, this, bring the rook, moving the bishop back, and a checkmate. So this could have finished the game much, much quicker. But we get this, once again, just trade the pieces. There's no need to allow them to keep pieces on. As long as they have pieces on the board, there's a possibility you could lose, so you should definitely be trading off these pieces. See, so exactly, now this rook is getting into the position and at least causing a couple problems. Obviously, black's up so much material that it doesn't matter. In this situation, once again, you have this kind of check here, and you may as well just trade pieces. And at that point, you can just start gathering up some pawns, making a queen. And I think black might have got a little bit lucky here. I'm not sure. Maybe they saw this. You can let me know if you did actually see that you had this check tactic after they take your rook. I know that you saw it after they took your rook, but it's important that you're not spotting that. You're not only seeing this once they've actually taken the rook. So fairly straightforward conversion here. What I would be doing probably is actually working on boxing the king. So in this situation, I would definitely, instead of g3, I would consider moves like rook d1, and after the king moves, I play a move like rook to d6, and the point is that now there is a box around this king, and it's stuck in this little playpen here, and you basically just get to push this pawn, make a queen, and deliver your ladder checkmate after you can get your ideal setup, and you just deliver the ladder. Instead, we get a bit of a scarefest as black looks to be struggling to set up the ideal checkmating attack. Probably they might want to see the checkmates, the basic checkmates video that I've made, and that could definitely help. So if you want something like this, something like moving the rook over here, and you can just set up the ladder. You don't need two queens and a rook to checkmate the king. You can do it just as efficiently and much less dangerously with these two pieces. As soon as you introduce the third queen, you increase your risk of stalemate. So we end up, they end up just checking around. They get a second queen. Things are looking a little bit scary, but basically at this point, they're doing the right thing, delivering checks every time and delivering checkmate. If you stop delivering checks, there's a risk of stalemate. Next game, they have the white pieces, and it's another win for them. They have, once again, good opening principles, asking the bishop what it's doing. Admittedly, they have just lost a pawn, but they are much ahead in development after a move like bishop c4 or queen to b3, targeting this pawn here, looking for bishop c4 and going after the f7 pawn, which is very nice. Castles, they're way ahead in development. You can now put pressure on this knight here, as they do. But definitely you should try and ramp it up with this here. They'd have to find a move like that, but even that might be a blunder because you'd be able to take. I'll just show that, for example, something like here, and you actually blundered because the knight cannot take because you'd lose the defender. So bishop to a6, you want to put pressure on the pin piece, add more attackers to the pin piece with this move queen to a4. Okay, the attack. Nice little fork here, attacking the rook and the knight. All these games, pretty much all of them, being decided by some tactical ideas. You should definitely take that pawn because the pawn guards the queen. Okay, moves the queen out of the way. Probably a little bit scared that the two queens are seeing each other, but you can definitely just take the pawn and the pawn guards the queen. Some more moves come. I really like this, not getting scared that your queen's under threat. A little bit of danger levels. Unleashing the rook on the king, that's great. Trades with check. And I don't really like knight b1. I don't see why the knight should be going back. You should be trying to develop your pieces like this. Just get the bishop out, get the rook out into the game. That's what's most important. Your rook is a super strong piece. The bishop can always go to b4, something like that. So just try and develop your pieces. Don't overthink it. There's no need to bring the knight back and try and bring it to a more traditional square. Once you've put it somewhere, it will make do. It will move somewhere else. So yeah, this is the kind of confused thinking that we don't want to see. We don't want to see knights moving back and forth. Of course, white is still objectively winning, but after this move, it's actually a big blunder because now this f-pawn is hanging. As you can see, there was a discovery after the pawn moved to d3. I don't think that white noticed how dangerous this move with queen takes pawn could have been because it's actually a forced checkmate in 7. Not that either side would be seeing this necessarily. But it is definitely findable. Every move is a check, 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 and a checkmate. Now, of course, the game didn't end like this, but also if black follows the principle that you generally want to lead the check attack with your strongest piece that can deliver the most follow-up checks, you should be sending the queen in there to get the dirty work done. But okay. Great move. Bishop g5, noticing the pin. Once again, tactics decide everything. It's all tactics, tactics, tactics. Bishop g5 is good because now you can take the queen with check no matter what happens. So after this move, pawn to a6, you should be taking this queen with check, although queen f5, also a nice little flex, saying, you can't take my queen, look at this little triangular formation. Not really sure why the queen wasn't taken again, it's check. You also have a check here that you could deliver, but okay. And yeah, so we lose the control of the bishop, but we gain control of the rook, so it's not too bad. And from here on out, nice trade here. And we should try and really simple, really simple, just get the pawn moving. Like, just push the pawn. Just get that queen. Like, for example, this bishop is controlling that square. All you have to do is get your pieces, like the knight, for example, to control this square, put the rook behind the passed pawn and send it down the board. You will win the game instantly. When you notice your biggest asset, this d-pawn and potentially another passed pawn here, the easiest way to win endgames is just to promote your pawn and take pieces off your opponent as they have to sacrifice for the pawn. But alright, we instead get some moving around. Couple misses of this pawn here. Let's see. And oh, actually didn't realize this, but our viewer actually lost on time. That might explain why it was a bit hard to formulate a plan. That's actually quite understandable. They were under a minute in this situation. Definitely tough to do if you're new to the game. But at the same time, if you can notice that this is your strongest asset, you can definitely start pushing that pawn down the board fairly quickly, put a rook behind it, get that knight involved, and I think this game was definitely winnable. But it's also a great sign that our viewer is taking a lot of time, because it's much better to be having winning positions and losing on time than it is to be flagging your opponent every single game in terribly lost positions. Because at that point, you know that you're building good fundamentals, you're getting your winning positions, and you've just got to get that practice in, and you'll speed up eventually, and then you'll be winning like non-stop. Okay, so I think I'll probably do one more game. I think 3 should be enough, and I'll take a quick look at the opening tree and see what I can find. So our viewer has the black pieces now. We get e4, e5 yet again, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. This will be a very common opening that you'll be seeing a lot at the lower levels. And at the higher levels, bishop c4, Italian game, very standard. Knight f6 is great. 2 knights defense, putting some pressure on this pawn here. I'm quite surprised we don't see knight g5, because you might want to take a look at that if you're playing knight f6. But d3, also fairly common, opening up the bishop. What do we see? And pawn to d5. This is a great move. You're striking in the center. It's sufficiently supported by the knight and the queen, so I approve. After bishop g5, probably you're going bishop to e7 or f6. Both are good. So f6 is a fine move. I'm not a huge fan of it, because I do notice that this diagonal can get weakened, and that could spell trouble if you don't put a bishop on e6. Bishop comes out, great. And yeah, okay. So we lose control of the knight because we don't move back to b6. If you were to move back to b6, the queen would maintain control of the knight. It's quite difficult to be working in these situations. That's why I think f6 is quite dangerous, and potentially you can avoid blunders like this by just noticing that your only defending piece of here is this knight is the queen. And as soon as you move a bishop, something that can interfere with this queen defense of the knight, you will be losing the knight with check. And I'm assuming that that's not what happened actually. Now you have the opportunity of bishop to e6 again, or something, knight to e7, trying to defend the knight. Yeah. Bishop g5, I think both sides just having a little bit of a blind spot here. Definitely tactics, like I said, they're deciding everything. Hanging pieces. If you can avoid hanging your pieces and take the opponent's hanging pieces and try and put simple pressure, I like this move from a conceptual standpoint, but you have to be very aware of your opponent's plans and threats as well, and just avoid hanging your own pieces, taking their hanging pieces, and you should be good to go. But they win a piece here. I think that's pretty much the game deciding move. Potentially here actually, after the move bishop to e4, f5 definitely findable, trapping the bishop, because after pawn to f5, the bishop has no more squares. You have just attacked the bishop as well, so it's definitely should be quite a natural move to be playing f5, attacking the bishop once again. You can find this by just looking at the piece here and trying to say, where can this bishop go? Because the less squares a piece has to go to, the more in danger it is of getting trapped by your pawns. The bishop has no backwards retreats here or here, and you can go f5, and a mini calculation here, after h3 you can take here, and that also attacks the knight, so that if you were to get this, then you can take with the pawn. So tactics are at the heart of every game, especially those of low levels. Once again, just a hanging bishop there. Admittedly, the position's really hard to defend, so I can't really complain too much. Also, white is threatening this fork, which maybe you'd want to move your queen up to get out of. They go into the fork. And at this point, it's just too hard to defend, really. And I can't blame black, really, for doing anything from this position. Other than, I mean, these are some strange moves by white. I don't know what white's doing, really. I actually do approve of trying to really get in there and deliver that checkmate. That was a great last attempt. Of course, if there was a capture here, that would be a checkmate. And that definitely could have happened. But after this, I don't think you should be resigning this. You may as well play on, at least, you have a queen. You have a queen. You may as well at least test how white is going to beat you. Play moves like b5, try and push your pawn, and I'll show you this little stalemate trap that might save you a couple games. Of course, it's not going to be the best for your long-term improvement, but you may as well give it a go. Something like here, this, something like this. And if you can ever get in a situation like this, for example, where they go for this queen trade, you can set a little trap with this move, king to h1, king to h8, as inspired by Eric Rosen. And if they take on g6, this would be a very, very sad stalemate for white. Okay. So now I'm just going to take a quick look at their games. First with the white pieces. They are playing a consistent opening on the first move, which I think is a great sign. Also very high win rate there, that's good. I have noticed they're playing a lot of 200 and 300 rated players as opposed to their own level all the time. I definitely think you should try and play players within 100 points up and down of you most of the time if you want to get consistent improvement. That way, you're unlearning bad habits and learning better habits against stronger players. Anyway, they're going pawn to e4, pawn e5, by far the most common move at this level. Let's see what weapon they have. Okay, so they're playing bishop to c4. I don't know if that's a recent thing. Last played on the 7th, the 8th. Okay. And okay, so it looks like they're playing a mixture. They might have started off playing bishop c4. I think bishop c4 is a great weapon. Knight f3 is also good, depending. Let's see what they play against the main move, knight to c6. So they are playing into the Italian game, and they're going for the fried liver, which is definitely fair enough. They are getting some wins. Players are playing h6. They're taking here, getting this nice fork. So this is definitely not a bad system to be playing this Italian with bishop c4. I have no problem with that. I think bishop c4, I think right away bishop's opening might be a little bit too advanced. So I do like knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. And against bishop c5, they're going for the Jerome Gambit. Are they Jerome Gambit players? Let's see. No, the Jerome Gambit would be knight to e5 and pawn to d4 or queen to h5. I think that's an invention of the chess bras. But maybe the Jerome Gambit isn't what you should be going for. I think I actually would really be recommending the Scotch Gambit. And the way you play the Scotch Gambit, I think instead of bishop c4, I think that white can have a lot of success. I might do a video on it, but at the same time, you can just look it up, learning how to play the Scotch Gambit. The move comes with pawn to d4, and the point is that after you get this pawn takes pawn, which is the most common move, you play bishop to c4, eyeing up the f7 pawn, and after they develop, you can simply castle, and if they take the pawn, they can get into a lot of trouble with this rook e1 move, and you can often win the knight. I'll show one little tactic here. They can take, they can play d5 if you take, and they take. Now you have knight to c3 going for these two pieces, and let me tell you, under 1,000 players will absolutely crumble from this position. There is huge pressure on the king. Of course, objectively, there's like queen a5 takes and like some bishop to e6 to hold on. But I can tell you that honestly, players are probably just going to be moving their queen back or something, and they will be blundering like crazy in this opening. And you've got lots of good tactical opportunities against the black king that's still in the center. So that's just one sample line. Another quick example is something like here, and bishop d5, where you can win a piece. So definitely I would consider mixing up into the Scotch Gambit. I think it's a great beginner weapon, and you should definitely consider it. And okay, what are they playing against e4? They're playing e5. Knight f3, they're going knight c6. Seem to be having good success. And against bishop's opening, they're going knight f6. I think this is great. And unfortunately, people are playing too much craziness that we can't really analyze what to do. The only question is, what are you doing after knight g5? Are you potentially looking at the Traxler with bishop to c5? Or are you trying to learn the main lines? I wouldn't really recommend that. I would probably say it's worthwhile learning the Traxler, because after knight to f7, you're going to get lots of games with bishop f2 and knight takes e4, and you can have, I think the trap after this is queen to h4, and you're going in for queen to f4. So something like here takes and queen to f4, and on king to e2, I don't really remember what exactly the forced checkmate sequence is. I'm not 100%. Is it something like this? Aha, is it like knight c5 here and queen d4? So that would be one of the forced checkmates that you could get out of the Traxler. I would definitely consider picking this up, because people, if you're going to play this knight f6, knight c6 against the Italian, they will try and fried liver you at this level, so it's definitely worth picking up a weapon like the Traxler. Alternatively, you could go for some more mainstream stuff with d4 takes knight a5. You don't want to be falling into the fried liver, as I'm sure our viewer knows, because they seem to be playing it themselves, because queen to f3 and king to e6 can get very scary with the move like knight to c3. So that's really mostly what I have. Just keep at it, keep trying to do some more puzzles. Make sure you can try and iron out those hanging pieces. I would also recommend trying to get a consistent weapon with white and with black. So with white, maybe consider learning the Scotch Gambit against e4, e5. And with black, maybe consider picking up the Traxler, even though your current setup with the two knights out and striking in the center also seems to be doing very, very well. So I would just keep that up for the time being. And once you start noticing your opponents mixing in more Caro-Kann and say French, Sicilian stuff, it might be worth taking a look at that too. But for the time being, most of your games are going to be e4, e5, so I would definitely be concentrating on that. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video or got something useful from it, please consider liking and subscribing. And equally, if you want to have your own games analyzed, please leave a comment in the comment section. And like I said, whichever one gets the most likes, I will be doing a viewer analysis of in this potential new series. So anyway, see you all next time. Bye.